everybody. Welcome to Tea with Temple. So this week I've got a friend of mine that I actually met while I was studying at university, and his name is Christopher. And he's coming on here today to talk about his artistic journey. So Chris, can
Hello.
you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how old you are, I guess what you're currently doing in life?
Okay. Um, so I'm Christopher. Originally, I'm from South London, born in Brixton, well, St Thomas's Hospital. Um, I've moved to Leicester because of university. Um, I'm currently practicing as an artist now, self-employed, and I make work about identity politics, particularly disability politics that stem from my own experience,
Mm.
life experiences.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. So, when did you first start doing art then?
That's um, so originally, um, for a few years, um, I didn't know what I wanted to do up until my late 20s, and then um, my illness progressed and not forced me, but I had counseling. I thought that quite beneficial. I thought I'd train as a therapist, so train as a counselor. But then my condition progressed more, and I thought I needed to do something else. I wasn't sure. Um, and my local college, um, the leaflet I got through the door said, if you're unsure about what you want to do, come in and we'll speak about it. So, long story short, the two ladies that interviewed me, one was the head of the arts department, and the other was a graphics teacher. And they said, "Oh, Chris, you sound creative." Bearing in mind, I've not drawn or created anything, done anything creative apart from a bit of poetry here and there, but secretly, I've always been interested in the arts. Um, um, but I left the interview, signed up to a diploma in art and design. I was thinking, what have I done? This I went home and I told my mom. She she burst into hysterics. She thought it was funny. So what? Because she knows that I've never created anything, so it was quite a bit of a shock. But long story short, I think within the first couple of weeks of the course, um, I realized I really enjoyed it, and then there was a moment where I realized this is my path. We had a assignment called alternative self-portrait, and
Ooh.
throughout the course up until that point, I did everything I could not to draw because I thought I'd be quite disappointed because of my limited movement in my hands. But I went home and drew a portrait of myself, and it looked just like me. And that, for me, it was kind of may sound a bit silly to some, but I think I think I think God was telling me, look, this is your purpose now. It gave me a new lease of life, um, and since then I've I've gone on to go to university, exhibit um, different places in the world and around the country, um, and now I'm self-employed, artist
Wow.
practicing.
Oh,
So,
that's a really refreshing story, because I feel like a lot of creatives, I know in my course at university, a lot of people always said, I've just done it all my life. It's just always been my life. I've never done anything except photography. And it's just like, oh, okay. There's no kind of like significant moment for them that was like, right, this is the time. And I always felt quite um, detached from that, because I kind of came into that sphere of creativity at a later age. So yeah, it was, for me, it was like there was this really significant time that was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. But for a lot of them, it was just, this is just who I am. I've always been an artist. So yeah, it's nice to hear a story that's really unique and personal to you as to how you kind of fell into this gift that you have. It's really exciting.
yeah,
Really,
yeah,
really.
it's been a roller coaster, but very,
Mm,
very rewarding personally, and um, obviously, um, artistically, it's changed my life
mm,
in so many positive ways. It's unbelievable. Um, so yeah, I'm quite happy. I wasn't always a cheerful person. I think
mm,
for many years I struggled with coming to terms with um, my condition, which is a type of muscular dystrophy. So it was a slow. I would um, describe it as I was constantly grieving, um, losing the ability to walk slowly, then the ability to do other things for myself, and
mm,
that's why I was kind of lost. So finding the counseling and then finding art was like,
mm.
it just gave me a whole new purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you, would you say that your art is therapeutic? Like, do you ever combine the two and do like kind of art therapy kind of work? Do you ever combine the two like that?
I think yeah, I think it goes hand in hand.
Mm,
I think, well, for a lot of creative people who create art, and particularly personal art, you have to go through the process of feeling it, understanding what you're trying to convey and why you're saying it. So yeah, it's therapy. So
mm.
I'm getting two for one.
Exactly. So you said that at the start of your course, you were apprehensive to draw because you weren't sure if you'd be able to, but then you realised you could. So,
Yeah.
what is your favourite medium for art and expressing yourself?
Well, to begin with, it was illustrations. I love illustrations, quite detailed illustrations. But now my practice is, I'm a bit greedy. I kind of whatever. How can I say? So whatever topic I am currently working on, that would dictate what medium I'm going to be working in. So for me, it keeps it interesting because um, I'm always having to learn new
Mm,
things. So I've done work in glass, I've done work, photography work recently, I've done illustrations, I've done installations, I've done video work. So it's constantly
yeah.
uh, evolving.
I feel like if no one else watches this conversation, it's just for me, because I say that because you're just speaking to all of my artistic insecurities right now, Chris. all my life, right? All my life, I've had this fixation on finding my thing and finding my style. I've always got something I want to say, but I say it in loads of different ways, in loads of different mediums, and I always felt like that was wrong for me to not
Oh,
have a one way of doing it, like one illustration style or one photography style, or and I always was just like, and I still feel like that. I'm just like, oh, I haven't found my thing yet. Like, I know I'm good with a camera, but I still kind of do a mixture of stuff, and I still like other creative methods. So that's encouraging to hear that there's someone else out there that likes to do different stuff.
but I think that's good. I think that's good. I think for me, I think you should remember as well. Remind yourself that
Mm.
no matter what medium you create in, you're always going to have your voice and your
Yeah,
unique
yeah,
um, um, viewpoint. You know,
completely.
so yeah, so it's all good. It's all good.
Mm, I see. So that being said, then about having your voice, and that is the consistency all the way through. You've said that your art explores identity politics. Did you say?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? What's that about?
Um, so identity politics. That's it's about, I suppose, the factors uh, which play a role in who I am. So I like to explore the things that affect me, um, and not just myself, but affect people in general. But I've noticed my practices um, more towards the side of people in the margins, people who don't have a voice, um, and that's coming from particularly my own experience of my identity changing
Yeah.
throughout time and noticing
Mm.
those differences and those factors which play a role in how I'm perceived or how I perceive myself, and um, how I am in society,
Mm.
as a whole. Um, but I'm quite fired up about making work about the imbalance of things, particularly related to people who don't have a voice, um, and making work that, yeah, deals with that sort of identity politics.
Mm. So you create work that kind of speaks for the voiceless, would you say?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. To begin with, I didn't want to. That wasn't.
Oh.
I. That was another thing that I kind of shied away from. I didn't want to be one of those artists. Not that there's nothing wrong with it, because I'm doing it now. But one of those, one of those artists that make work about disability, and
Mm.
I didn't want to be put in that box. But to be honest with you, it would be very strange if I didn't speak about the things that affect me um, profoundly and other people, um, um, with the hope of creating a conversation around changing a different perspective, changing people's perspective of of,
Mm.
of, of how they see things and experience things.
Mm. I was going to say, because it must be hard, because it's how old were you when you got your diagnosis?
I was quite young, but the type of uh, neuropathy, muscle wasting condition I have, it's quite slow
Mm.
progression.
Mm.
So I was diagnosed when I was 5. I was walking all the way up until my 30s.
Mm.
and then fell over, broke my femur, but because I couldn't use crutches, my
Mm.
hands were affected. Being off of my feet for 3 months. By the time it healed, I couldn't walk again. So that was like a bit of a jolt
Yeah.
into a different life, so to
Mm.
speak. So that was difficult.
Mm.
But now I'm in a better place,
Yeah.
totally different space.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
but
good. Mm.
growing up, I was always a bit of a rebel in terms of if someone thought I could do something, I would deliberately do it.
Do it. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good. I like that. I wouldn't know if I call that being a rebel. That's just,
Well, that's kind of.
proving
I've
yourself.
been a bit I've been a bit diplomatic. I didn't want to give you. Yeah, yeah,
So I say that because I can't I can't relate to it in the same way, but I imagine it must be difficult to um, acknowledge a disability as a, a big element of your identity, but it's not your whole identity. Um, so I imagine it must be difficult when you're saying about, I don't want to be that artist that makes art about disabilities, because it's like there's more to you than the
yeah,
disability.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I imagine that must have been a bit of a internal
Yeah,
struggle. Like, do you ever get tempted to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to look at all the other parts of me and express that? You ever get
well,
that?
yeah, I've constantly toyed with that.
Mm.
Even when we were at university, I was struggling with the fact that for me, I used to. So my first medium was illustration.
Mm.
I can control that.
Yeah.
I don't need any help or input.
Mm.
Um, so I had the power there. But again, it's coming to terms with the fact that I need help. That doesn't make, that isn't all of who I am. That doesn't make my disability. Uh, my identities are made up of just that. So as soon as I understood that it's part of who I am, I was able to let go and bring in the other elements that which make me who I am. You know, does
So
that make sense?
it does. It makes a lot of sense. Like, just kind of, yeah, yeah. I think I do get it. It's like it becomes your whole, because you kind of cling on to it. But when you let go of it, you can actually, there's room for everything else then,
Yeah.
but it's still there. Yeah, I do get it. It's yeah, it just makes sense. I don't know how to re-explain it. It makes sense. I don't have to say it in another way. It just makes sense. It makes sense, Chris. So when you say you've made art to kind of speak for the voiceless, are there any other particular groups of people or individuals that you've collaborated with or represented in your art at all?
Um, uh, um, so the people that I suppose the work that I've made recently
Mm.
deals with issues about um, social inclusion, um, um, what's the word? Structural discrimination. Um, in terms of the people that this if you're blind, you can relate to that. If you've got a hearing impairment, you can relate to that. If you've got a mobility impairment, you can relate to that. You know, I think it kind of touches on those people, and even I made work about being made homeless just before I graduated, and that work was touching on the housing crisis which is going on within um, Britain, and the lack of housing, um, and particularly the people that's affected by that. Um, um, but even though I was coming from the standpoint of being a disabled person wanting to live independently, that could be translated to um, people wanting to live independent and not being able to find adequate housing, or parents needing housing with children and they have to stay in one room, or people who are not from this country and they need housing, you know, and so on. So yeah, it's broad, but people can relate to it in a way.
Yeah.
Those people who are not in a position to either buy a house, rent a house privately, you know. So yeah.
Lots of big topics, Chris. That's like really, really big. So when you say, you say structural discrimination? What does that?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Can you explain that a little bit?
So one of the projects I worked on was a commission I was given, awarded to create. Well, it was a hotel, and the hotel put a call out for artists to create an installation for one of their hotel rooms. And like I said prior, I was made homeless just before I graduated, and I had to take up emergency housing in a hotel. And the hotel room was labeled disabled access and accessible, and it wasn't. I could just about get in the door. I had to go into the corner before I could shut the door behind me. I could just about get around the bed. I couldn't sit at the dressing table, the dresser, the desk. I couldn't sleep in the bed because it was the wrong height. I could just get into the bathroom, but I couldn't shut the door. I couldn't use the shower because I couldn't get in the bathroom. And this was a few of their rooms. And it was a big chain hotel, one of the big chains. And so for me, I thought this is not on a daily basis. I go to places where, so if you go to Costa Coffee and the tables are the wrong height, or they got a pole in the middle, so my wheelchair can't get underneath, or the counter's really high, and I'm kind of peering up, or the doors are not automatic.
Yeah.
You know, shops that I can't get into because there's steps, there's no drop curbs, you know, the list goes on. But yeah, that's what I mean by structural. And I think as well, and I know this is going to sound a bit funny, but I'm not disabled. My environment makes me disabled.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I want to. Can you give us an example of some of your art, some of your maybe more recent projects or more your favorite projects? You say you use different types of mediums, so I'm trying to visualize what your art is looking like at the moment, but obviously it's up for grabs by the sounds of it. What
Yeah.
it can look like.
Okay, so
Paint us a picture,
I think
metaphorically.
I think I think one of the recent ones which I enjoyed was the hotel, where I created a room which was inaccessible, but I wanted the viewer, or because you can book a room, you can book a night in the room. So I wanted uh, people who booked a room to experience what a space was like, which wasn't designed for them, and for them to experience inaccessibility. So
Mm.
the bed I created was just high enough for them to struggle to get into it. You had to think about how you was going to get out of the bed at night. If you wanted to use the toilet, it wasn't going to be straightforward. The things that the processes I would normally go through. How am I going to do this? How do I navigate this space? So another element was I trapped the door behind the toilet so you couldn't shut the toilet door. So again, that's about privacy.
Yeah.
But again, tapping into that whole idea. The sinks in the toilet were at the wrong height and position in the wrong position. The toilet dispenser roll was behind the door, so to get to it was it's playful, it's quite theatrical, but with a serious,
Mm.
like a serious message.
Yeah.
The desk itself, I changed um, the height of the seat so you could pull the chair up, but you couldn't physically see under it because your knees
Mm-hmm.
would get under it. The telly TV was around the alcove. It was in the alcove. So the only way you could see is through the mirror on the wall. So
Yeah.
that was quite enjoyable. So yeah, so that was one of my pieces. I think another piece was a piece called Housing Crisis, which these pieces I create quite one after the other after coming out of university. So I'm quite a new artist in that sense. Not a big extensive catalogue of work yet, but Housing Crisis was I took the dialogue between myself and the two local authorities who were fighting over whose responsibility it was to rehouse me, and I took that conversation, the email dialogue, and I created screen prints of that. Then I used redaction, so I blocked out sensitive information,
Yeah.
names, places, and so on. Then I redacted it further to make like poetic statements about uh, uh, the right, the fundamental right to live independently, uh, the one to be uh, equal and recognized, not equal, but uh, what else? Uh, Statements about what really matters, like it seems. So for one of the quotes was like, "You, even though um, cost, even though this is not cost effective, I'm still a human." So within the text that was in the email, I picked out these different words to make another statement. So yeah,
Wow, that sounds really interesting. I feel like it sounded like, did you post that online on social media?
yes,
I feel like I saw it. It sounded familiar. I was like, I think I saw that one. I really like the sound of your work that you're doing, Chris. It sounds really thought provoking. um, and yeah, challenging, but in a good way, not to make people feel bad or uncomfortable, but uncomfortable enough to rethink and kind of just open, I guess, expand people's awareness of different people's experiences, because I think it's very easy to just live in your own bubble and be like, this is what life is like, and this is what life is like for everyone. But it's definitely
Thank
not
you.
the case.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, but you know what? I think because I was quite independent and I've kind of experienced disability, different degrees of it, I
Yeah.
can totally understand with people not being aware. And I don't want to shove my things that upset me down people's throats. That's not going to bring about a change of perspective. I personally feel. Um, I think you need to draw people in and allow them to identify with it in whatever way uh, they can. You know, and I think that's what I try to do. I'm always mindful of what am I trying to say, how is it going to be perceived, and a lot of my work is collaborative in the sense of I have, in order for me to function as an artist, I need people who can help me set up equipment or bounce ideas off. You can um, respond to emails sometimes because I get fatigued. Uh, but all of that is part of the art. It's not just my voice
Mm.
in it. And I think that's what I'm trying to say in my work. I think we're all linked. And I think we all need to work together to make the world slightly more comfortable for each other.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, it's true. I definitely agree with that, and I think it's like, if we did actually have more of a collaborative attitude to the stuff we do, um, there'd probably be less times where we felt like we weren't being catered to or our needs weren't being met, because there would be someone in the room or someone in the process that has that experience. So it's kind of like there's always going to be different perspectives and inputs coming into everything we do, which will eliminate that from happening. Whereas it's a bit of a every man for himself, and everyone's got their own little projects to do. Like even in a big um, business where they're like set in a corporate office, everyone's working for one business, but they've all got their own little jobs. They don't actually
Yeah.
come into each other's space and collaborate very much. So that I can see how easily it can happen, that the structures we live in and the kind of this society setup has happened, that there's a lot of people that aren't being thought about and considered when they're making decisions, because there's no one in that space as part of the decision making that represents all those people. And I think
Exactly.
what you're doing is a really clever way to kind of get people in that room without literally having to be there, because
Yeah.
um not every space is going to have somebody um, who has a disability or feels that they are a minority of some sort. But if you have someone who's kind of works for the council who has gone and seen your exhibition, they then have you in mind, and then they can bring that to the next meeting and be like, what about these people? I went to this and I saw this, it made me think that. I think it's a really
Yeah.
clever way of
Yeah.
getting more of those voices in those meetings and in those decision making moments. I think it's really, really, really clever.
Thank you.
Really clever way of doing it.
In my mind, it's not. I think I think as an artist, kind of you're always battling with yourself to a degree to to I try not to get too far ahead of myself uh, in that sense. But I think you're right. I think, like, yeah, I totally agree. People need to be um, in that space as well to be part of that conversation to be had. And through making this work, it's put me in spaces that I thought, and people who've come to see it and seen the work are from the spaces like you're talking about, from the council, from organizations that approach me. How can we include um, people from your group? Do you have any ideas and so on? So
Mm.
yeah, yeah, I think that's positive.
And I guess it's hard with creative work because you just never know how far it's going to go. And I get what you mean when you say you're trying not to get ahead of yourself and think, yeah, my art's going to have this impact and that impact and it's for this. But the reality is that it's probably going to do all those things and more, because you just never know who's going to see it, and you never know what impact it's going to have. And I do love that about art, that even though an artist can make something with a specific intent, there's still other things you can take away from it. I had that a
Yeah,
lot with my final piece at uni. It was very, very specific. It was very, very niche. It was about young men in the Seventh-day Adventist Christian church. It was very, very specific. But people that watched it that have no link to that group at all were still resonating with parts of it and like, yeah, I get that, and yeah, I feel that way, or I know someone that has that experience in a different setting. So it's, even though it can be like, I want to tell these people this thing, everyone else that sees
yeah,
it can still take away their own thing. And I love the magic of that. And I wonder what else people might be taking away from your art, that's an additional message to what you're putting out there. I think it's really I think it's exciting that art has that ability. It's really
yeah. I totally agree. I think that's one of the things that excites me. That when you make a piece of work and you give it to the world, it takes on its own
cool.
life. That's brilliant. Obviously,
Yeah.
like you said, some people, it's not going to be not you're not always going to have the the work's not always going to be perceived the way you want it to be perceived.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and you learn a lot. I think I learn quite a lot from getting feedback from people.
mm,
Um, so yeah,
mm. So before you left university, what was, um, I'm curious just about kind of the development of your art since uni. So what was your last project that you did at university?
my last project was called My Family,
Mm,
and I created, well, conducted a series of interviews with different people from different cultural backgrounds, and men and women. Um, and so I started with my own family, and the idea came about using like a chessboard. So I quite like power structure of well, not a power structure, but a family dynamics and the different roles um, family members uh, take on. Um, so I designed my own to represent different family members and place them in relation to how I saw my family, um, what made up my family dynamics. But like I said, I interviewed a few people, and then I made quite a few more objects, and I got them to select the objects and talk about why they're selecting the objects to represent those different family members and then place them in relation to how they saw their family. That was my last. That was my degree show work.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So you've kind of seeing a pattern of, I guess it's like interaction in your work, because obviously that's more beforehand. There's the interaction, and then you display it, but there's still that level of other people's opinions and voices and interacting with what you're making and then coming out, whether it's an installation, or the project you just described. It's really cool. I like that. Do you make any art that is literally just, or recently have you made anything that is just your voice, do you feel?
Um, no, no. I'd say no, but you know what? That's a good question because in my mind I was thinking it is my voice what I made the stuff I made recently, but I know what you mean. But no, I think no, 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 no. I was just trying to think. So I've taken some photos recently, or been taking a series of photos, but I suppose it is about my experience. Documenting my experience of being during the lockdown and what that means for me, and having to live with my care of one person because I'm on the list where I'm not allowed out at all. So yeah, I've been trying to investigate or interrogate or uh, yeah, what that means for me. But I know it's not going to extend it to other people's experiences.
Yeah. So how's that been for you, being on such a strict lockdown?
To begin with, I was quite excited by it. No, I can relax. This is I can chill, but well, I think as the reality set began to sink in, I think little things like getting shopping, worrying about my mom because I don't live with my mom anymore. I've got my own place, and she's not too well. It's thinking about how to get her shopping and so on, and making sure she's safe. But obviously, I can't leave, so um, the house. I think about also trying to figure out how I'm going to work now because I'm unable to go to the studio now. Um, um, my support, we still do uh, Skype calls and Zoom calls, but we can't really meet in person to do. It's a bit different, and losing commissions that would have went forward. So just trying to figure out how to I suppose, respond. So yeah, it's not been too hard. I think the only thing I suppose I struggle with from time to time is the lack of human interaction, face to face.
Yeah.
I think that's yeah, I'm missing that.
I've been hearing a lot of people say that boredom is like the the building block of creativity. Like it takes you to another level of your creativity when you're literally just like, I don't know what to do. Um, would you resonate with that in lockdown, or do you feel like it's
Yeah, I don't,
being inside has just kind of squashed your creativity? How have you felt with it?
a bit of both. I think I've gone through a roller coaster of people saying to me, oh, I can't wait to see what you create because this is your thing, and I'm like, oh my, really? That, that expectation of people, or and also me putting an expectation on myself that I should be doing something, but then, like you just said, you get to a point where I think it was fight or flight kind of thing. So I I think I work best under uh, pressure, uh, and I think my work normally comes out of after I've experienced something, then I normally make work. It's not during the process. During the process, I'm normally doing what I'm doing now, just documenting stuff and making notes and that sort of thing. But it's a bit different now because I'm trying to navigate how I'm going to make work in the future and what that means for me. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
does that mean? Does that make
Yeah, no,
sense?
yeah. So when it's that kind of more intense time, your brain starts to kind of process stuff and think of what you could make, and then when the pressure releases a bit, then the
Yeah,
you make.
yeah,
So
yeah.
have you made anything or done anything, like
Yeah.
actually like produced anything while you've been in lockdown, or has it been more
I've
just
I've
process?
done I've done I've done one or two drawings,
Mm.
illustrations. Uh, I've applied for a few different things, which I was successful with. So I'll be working with the Welcome Collection. Uh, I'll be working with a group called Small Radical Acts in Blackpool. Uh, I will be working with a gallery in North Carolina to make reimagine and rework the hotel
Oh.
in North Carolina, and another charity approached me to recreate the installation again in London. So
Ah,
yeah,
excellent.
there's a few things happening at once, I think. So
Mm.
yeah, I suppose.
Oh, that's
But
good.
creating, I've not had the opportunity to sink my teeth into anything properly yet.
Mm. What kind of, you said you've done two illustrations. What do you like to illustrate at the moment?
Um, so one of them is a, it's a drawing of a corridor where there are multiple doors open. Uh, for me, that it looks quite dark and depressing, but actually it's just a reminder of, for me, that uh, of previously when I couldn't see no way out. I didn't know where I could see no way out of my situation or my reality. A reminder of change will come,
Mm.
and so yeah, the, yeah, that was quite easy. And then another one is a drawing of the food parcels I've been getting from the government. Um, so I've been drawing those just for my own pleasure at the moment.
That sounds cool. Do you What material do you use for your illustrations?
So I use it's a traditional draft draftsman pen. So it's got a metal tip, and I quite like the lines it produces. It's quite uniform, quite graphic. It's quite harsh.
Mm.
Uh, uh, you can work into the paper quite well.
Mm.
It's quite yeah. I love that, and I love paper. That really thick
Mm.
um, watercolor paper is my thing.
Yeah, I'm starting to picture it now. So right now, I know. Is it black ink or blue ink?
Black, black.
Mm. I see. See, it's funny because when you said it, I thought of blue ink. I don't know why. I don't know who draws in blue ink.
There are a
I
few
don't know why.
artists
I
that.
just I saw blue. Maybe it's because my first kind of experience with that kind of pen was blue ink. Maybe that's why I thought blue. But that's a totally different vibe from black to blue. But,
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
vibe. So I know I'm probably not going to get a solid answer, but I'm going to ask anyway, just in case. Have you got an all-time favorite piece that you've made in your artistic journey?
Uh,
Mm.
can I split it into categories?
Go on then. Go on, I'll let you.
Okay, so I think career-wise, um, would be my first solo show, and that was a housing crisis, the screen prints I did.
Yeah.
Um, I think that kind of solidified for me the fact that I was taking myself serious, and I, even though from time to time I don't feel like an artist, but that was kind of like the icing on the cake to say, right, you're doing this serious now. I think from a personal standpoint would be the portrait I did of my nephew when he was 3. Um, I think I quite like the detail in that and the fact that is my nephew.
Mm.
He's kind of like my son. Uh, um, so yeah, that, and he's got really curly hair, lots of hair. So I drew his hair, the interpretation of his hair. So yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that makes me smile. But yeah,
yeah, sounds good. So I guess kind of just wrapping up really now. I guess this conversation, there's probably different types of people that might be inclined to listen to this. And I guess probably the two main groups may be um, creatives, um, and perhaps people who have disabilities of a sort or feel like they're in a minority group um, that's not feeling connected. So, you have any? I guess I'm asking for like a piece of advice or a thought you'd like to share with those two particular groups, or an
uh,
additional group that you feel like might resonate with what we talked about that I haven't mentioned.
no, I think you're no those two groups. I think I agree with you.
Mm.
Um, 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 I think people scared might have heard this over and over again, but I think nothing is static for forever.
Mm.
Things are always going to change, and I think the main thing, and that's good or bad. That's a good thing to remember. You know, I think the main thing is keep moving, in whatever way that means that is for you. Um, and then life will take you where it needs to take you. So, yeah.
I like that. Is that for both of them? That can be applied to everybody.
That's to everyone.
Universal. We like that.
Universal.
Universal artist. I like that. Very good. Well then, if that's your closing mark, then I just want to say thank you for joining me for tea today. It's been really nice to hear more about your art and your journey so far. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, both. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
enjoyed.
I forgot. That's what it is. Do you have, if anyone wants to see more of your art or find out what you're getting up to, or even find out if you can get involved in any of their projects, where can they find you?
Well, I've got a website which is christophersamuel.co.uk. So Christopher and then Samuel, Samuel. You can check and see what I'm up to, and if you want to contact me, my email address is on there as well. Social media wise, Instagram. I'm on Instagram. It's Christopher Samuel __, I think. Twitter, just Christopher Chris _Samuel. Even though I'm not that active on Instagram. I mean Twitter. But yeah. Yes.
Okay, good. So you are definitely accessible for those that are interested. Good. I will add those details to this episode in case people need the spelling for it as well. They can get hold of that. But yeah, thank you again, Chris, and thank you to anyone that's watching. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, and we'll be back again next week. But yeah, take care.
Bye bye.